Next, we are going to discuss about the ways of calculation of number of particles in a unit cell. That is calculation of number of particles in a unit cell. This is very important because a lot of problems are there based on it. So you have to understand this properly. So the heading, once again repeating it, number of atoms in a unit cell. We are going to first calculate how many atoms are there in a primitive, simple, cubic unit cell. You can find here, in this type of unit cell, as I had mentioned earlier, there are 8 atoms at the corners. In a simple cubic unit cell, there are 8 particles are placed at the corners of the cube. See, the particles that is represented earlier, the particles were not close together. But here actually the particles are close together. This is the actual arrangement of particles that you're seeing now here. For simplicity, we draw the particles as very small. But here you can see the 2 particles near are very close together. They are adjacent to each other. So here there are 8 total of 8 particles at the corners, which we have learned earlier. Now, in this one, a particle at the corner. In a simple cubic unit cell, each corner particle is shared between 8 adjacent unit cells. You can find here, when a particle is at the corner of a smallest part, you can see that the smallest part, each smallest part is called the unit cell. And when the particle is at the corner of the unit cell, that particle at the corner is shared by 8 adjacent units. So you can count and see there are 8 adjacent unit cells. Can you find that, children? There's 1, 2, 3, 4 at the bottom, and at above that there are again 4. So that particular green particle which is shown there is shared by 8 unit cells. Yes, it's here shown here. Total number is shown there. Therefore, only 1/8 of a particle is actually belonging to the particular unit cell. Since it is shared by 8 unit cell, only 1/8 of is being contributed to 1 unit cell. Here it is shown here, 1/8. See, the 8 parts is there. Only 1/8 belongs to 1 unit cell. So total number of atoms in 1 unit cell would be, there are total of 8 and each one's contribution is 1/8. So it is 8 into 1 by, it is 8 at corners and the contribution is for each one is 1/8. So 8 into 1 by, total number of atoms in this type of unit cell would be only 1 atom. The net result will be only 1 atom. Second, in body centered, we have learned in body centered, in this type of unit cell, 8 atoms are at the corners and 1 is at the body center. That is, each corner atom makes 1/8 contribution and the atom at the body center belongs only to that particular unit cell. So now I think you can guess how many atoms will be there in this type of unit cell. I think your guess will be right. Let us see. As we had mentioned earlier, 8 at the corners and 1 is present in the body center. This is the body centered cubic unit cell shown here. See here. The actual filling is like this. Okay, we are drawing it for a very easy representation. The points are represented as small dots, but this is the actual structure. 8 at the corners and 1 is at the center. Red portion that you can find belongs to that unit cell only. Actual portions of the atoms belonging to 1 unit cell, that is 1/8. There are total of 8 particles in the unit cell, but its contribution is only 1/8. So 8 into 1/8. The contribution is what is shown here, that the corners, 8 particles at the corners, contribution is what is shown here. Body center atom is only 1. That 1 in the center, the red ball in the center, is just belongs to only that one. corner atoms, we know there are 8 at corners, but its contribution for each one is 1 by 8. So total 8 into 1 by 8 is 1. So total number of atoms from here is 1 in the body center plus 1 in the corner. So total makes it how much? 2 atoms. So there are 2 atoms present in a body-centered cubic unit cell. Next is the face-centered cubic unit cell. So we have learned face-centered. What is a face-centered? Face-centered cubic unit cell has 1 atom at each corner. So there are 8 corners of a cube and 1 atom at each face center. And how many faces are there, children? There are 6 faces for a cube. So here at the corners there are 8, and also in the face or center also there is 1. An atom at the face center is being shared by 2 unit cells and hence makes a contribution of only 1 by 2 to a particular unit cell. So let us see the diagram. It will be more clear to you. See, the particles are at the corners. You can find at the corners there. And it is also present at the center of the face. In addition to the corners, it is also present at the center of the face. Is that clear, children? Particles in the center is also showing. It is showing here the particles in the center, the yellow balls. Each particle, here 2 unit cells are shown here. And the one particle at the center, the face center, in that each particle is located at the face center shared between 2 unit cells. Yes or no? The particles at the faces will be shared by 2 unit cells, whether it is above, on the side or anywhere, it will be shared by 2 unit cells. So its contribution, as I told you earlier, is 1 by 2 to a particular unit cell. So only 1 by 2 of each particle will belong to a unit cell. So this is the actual representation. So earlier the representation was by showing simple points, but this is the actual structure. 8 at the corners. See the red balls at the corners, and the face center, the blue balls is in the center of the face on each side. So this becomes the face-centered cubic unit cell. The contributions. The corners 1 by 8 is only being contributed to the unit cell. In the faces, it is shared by 2 unit cells. So only 1 by 2 contribution is there to a particular unit cell. So how can we do the calculation? So here they are showing the numbers here. The blue balls on the faces. It is 6 are their faces. Each one's contribution is 1 by 2. So it is 3 atoms, total of 3 atoms. And the corners, as we have learned, there are 8 particles in the corners, but each one's contribution is 1 by 8 to that unit cell. So it is 8 into 1 by 8. So total number of atoms in face-centered type of unit cell would be 3 plus 1, 4. Number of atoms is 4.